If I would have to compare it to something, it's kind of like a National Treasure cross with Indiana Jones. The game series itself is highly influenced by, that genre of film. I think that's the best comparison I can make. And if you play the game, you can see the influence from Tomb Raider, like heavily. It's like a adventure heist type movie. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to Cynicism. I'm Eric.
It's your boy Dante, man, and today we're going to be doing a review on Uncharted.
I'm a big fan of this game series. I'm sure a lot of you out there are. But I did not have the highest expectations for this movie because we know how video game adaptations typically do, man. They go in there, start switching shit up, which they did in this movie for sure, man. I got some questions. But the movie is about, it focuses primarily on Nathan Drake, who is like a big-time history buff. He had a dream of being an explorer with his older brother, Sam. Unfortunately, they got separated like in their teens, and he's kind of estranged from him. And he's working like as a bartender in New York right now, where he stumbles upon this guy by the name of Sully, played by Mark Wahlberg. Got some things to say about that as well. Mark enlists the help of Nate because he knows he's so well versed with history and knowledge, and he also apparently worked with his brother. So he enlists his help to try to discover this ancient treasure or find clues that lead to the location of this treasure. And they're trying to find it before, I guess, the main antagonist of the movie, played by Antonio Banderas.
Yeah.
Which, boy, he can be a villain.
Yeah, right. I was just about to say, he got a very villainous presence.
Yeah, but that accent be thick.
Yeah, right.
When you put it on. But, the movie focuses on them trying to get to this treasure before them, but also to work together and trying to avoid being double-crossed by each other. So it's a lot of twists and turns in the movie. Let's talk about these fucking characters. So first we got Nathan Drake, played by Tom Holland, to my disgust. Ever since I heard that he was cast, that shit just rubbed me the wrong way. I like Tom Holland, but he has a very unique appearance that just does not fit the character of Nathan Drake at all. When we first introduced to Nathan in the games, he's already probably mid-30s man. Tom Holland just doesn't look like that. The thing about it is, I would have forgiven that if they wanted to focus on a younger version, which they did in some of the movie. But the problem is, some of the events of this movie are events that happened when Nate was already a full adult. They could have done this had they not taken so many key scenes from the game. They could have just did like their own like little spin on like the meeting of Sully and Nate. Then later progressed into like some of the later adventures. As far as the personality and charisma of Nate Drake, I thought he captured that fairly well. The snarky, cynical comments. He's like a very fun and likable character. And I understand why they cast him because, he's Spider-Man. It's a lot of parkour and rock climbing and those types of physical activities that come with the character of Nate Drake, but he just didn't look like him. That was my biggest gripe.
Yeah.
He looks way too young to be playing the version of Nate Drake that we're supposed to believe he is to be in this movie.
It's crazy seeing Tom Holland in this role made me realize how young of a face he has. Because in Spider-Man, you don't think about it too much. One, because he's been that character for 3 movies now. And, Peter Parker, obviously, in this version is supposed to be a high school student, so it makes sense. Seeing him cast in a role where he is supposed to be allegedly a grown-ass man, it just was not. It was throwing me off, man. It was weird to see him in that. But to piggyback off of what you said, I thought he did a great job in terms of the personality of the character, even if this is a younger version, which I think they're going with, even though they mixed older elements of the game. That's very confusing and weird. I know that's going to offset a lot of fans, but the cynical, snarky, that witty, charismatic way of Nathan Drake's personality, I thought he captured that really well. And honestly, this movie, the funny moments, I thought Tom was pretty funny in this. You know what I'm saying? Like in Spider-Man, he's kind of like nerdy, awkward funny. In this, he was kind of like just witty funny, honestly, more confident and things like that, which I really appreciated.
The same goes for Sully too. Like Sully and Nate are like 2 6-foot+ dudes. You know what I'm saying? Like solid dudes. Mm-hmm. And he ain't got the mustache. Yeah. Let's talk about Sully. Speaking of him, they stayed true to their character dynamics as far as Sully not not being that trustworthy early on in their relationship. But in this movie, I felt like they made him way less likable than he was in the games. I mean, he ain't really show any heart until the end of the movie. I'm like, man, Sully, yeah, he could be a piece of shit sometimes, but I remember him to be way more likable than what I saw displayed in this movie.
Definitely.
Unfortunately.
He was all about the money. I was like, wow, man. You know, even when he talked about the stuff that went down with his brother, it just seemed like his reaction to Tom's reaction felt very stilted and like lacking in any empathy, really. I was like, what the fuck? Like, really? He was like, dude, you was just gonna go through it and not mention this about my brother? He was like, yeah. I was like, oh,
yeah,
okay.
Let's get out of it.
Yeah, right, yeah.
He didn't give me that older, like, mentor vibes that Sully did in the games. It was, and like I said, I know I got to keep reminding myself this is supposed to be early in the relationship, but even in the game, and I hate to keep comparing the game, but the game, it was already basically a movie. So the esteem with which I hold those games are movie quality. So it's hard to not compare it when, you know, you actually get a feature film release that is inspired by the game. I feel like a lot of people that have played the games and love that franchise are going to constantly be drawing comparisons and saying, hey, you know, I don't like what they're doing with these people.
I think that's natural. It's funny because I liked Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg's chemistry, and I like them both in this movie, kind of, but it's just, as far as who they were supposed to be relative to the source material, they were not those characters. It felt based off of that, but very loosely. But Mark Wahlberg did a pretty decent job. Like, he's funny too.
No, he was cool. He ain't feel like Sully to me. You know, originally he was supposed to actually play Nathan Drake.
I would have preferred that over this.
I would have taken that.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have been great casting either. But I definitely think it would have been better than him being cast as Sully.
I agree. One thing that I did find interesting about this movie is that it leaned a lot heavily on the lore of the game, you know, and I know when films do this already that has an established property, they kind of use that as a crutch in a way where you're not obligated to tell story, you know what I'm saying? Because the fans will fill in the blank with what they know. There's a lot of told history here, but it's not a lot of shown history. I would even took in some flashbacks. Flashbacks are pivotal and can be very useful in movies like this, where you have a lot of characters and you need to establish some history quickly. They told us about what happened with Sam. We never even seen that. Like, I would have took a flashback, even a short scene that shows some elements of what took place there, some elements of their relationship. And then also, the thing with that is that it's a lot of bad blood history too, like that we don't feel, we're just told that it's there. Actually seeing that in the movie would be helpful in identifying that with this movie. Like I said, I think they're leaving that up to you as a person who probably played the game to fill in those gaps, but it's not really shown in this movie, which is an issue from a story standpoint.
And to your point about flashbacks, and that's the thing about the game, the story is spread across 4 primary games, but then they also have like mini story games too. So you get to play through those flashbacks in the game. That's why I was confused as to why they chose to draw so many elements from all the games instead of focusing on one game and maybe just putting a spin on that. If y'all plan on making a franchise out of this movie, they should have just focused on maybe 1 or 2 elements of some of the games instead of like, I felt like they focused on literally all 4 of the primary games.
Yeah.
They kind of sold themselves short from a storytelling aspect where they could have, you know, spread it out over the course of multiple films. I felt like it was a lot of unnecessary plot put into this movie that just, it didn't need to be there. I think they wanted to, they value like some of the more amazing visual elements from the games over like, you know, the story.
That's what
I felt like they wanted to put some of those dope scenes that we got to play through, the sequences we get to play through in the games. It's like they wanted to stuff them in the movie no matter if it made sense or was necessary.
You know, movies like this always be funny to me because they will utilize that triple and double cross to the maximum. It's like, dude, you can't trust anybody. Like, but it be seeming almost cartoony. You know what I'm saying? When he turned around after they found that salt, I guess, and they found that map, and she just had the gun pointed at her, I was like, but why though? Like, she's like, yeah, you know, I just can't trust people. I'm like, yeah, you aren't trustworthy.
Right.
Like, what are you talking about? I was literally just grabbing a map and about to leave with you. We was gonna leave together. Like, everybody is not to be trusted. interested in this shit. Usually in a more compelling movie, that could probably, even then you can't do it but so much, because then, like I said, it starts to become laughable at this point, which it did to me in this movie. I just was tripping, like, you too? In a more established movie with a more compelling plot and more compelling characters, like if these relationships were better established, the double cross would mean more, because it's like, oh, okay, they actually have a relationship, things like that. All of these people felt like they just met each other. So it's like, yeah, what the fuck do I care? Yeah, I mean, I guess.
It was cool to see Nolan North in here. His little cameo. I really enjoy his voice acting. I think he did the motion capture for Nathan Drake too in the game. He is, I mean, by default, he is the true Nathan Drake. So it was cool that he made a little cameo, and they played his little theme music too. Yeah. So I thought that was dope.
I thought the visuals in this movie looked very well done. Yeah. The shots and everything, man, especially the action stuff.
Yeah, the CG was, and most of the scenes, it was pretty seamless.
I was very impressed, actually, while watching this movie. I was like, man, it looks very good. And then, like I said, it definitely captured the spirit of the game in terms of those CGI scenes, those very cinematic scenes that it has in the movie. Mm-hmm. I felt like they did a good job of capturing that, even though they didn't necessarily capture the heart and the plot was all over the place. They definitely seemed to focus very well on those elements.
It was a lot of cool visuals directly pulled from the game that I saw that I liked. Like I said before, like that plane scene. It was cool to see it because I thought it was pretty well executed. The ship scene, yes. Not when they had the helicopter, but when he first discovered the ship in that cave and stuff, that was kind of cool to see. That was from, I think, the 4th game too. It was just a lot of little scenes I just recognized the direct inspiration for. It was cool to see. I just didn't appreciate the context that it was presented in. I didn't hate this movie, but you know, I felt that Uncharted video game in comparison was just such a masterpiece, especially the 4th one. It's like probably one of my favorite games of all time. Some of the liberties they took with some of the elements from the games wasn't the biggest fan of. I definitely was never a fan of the casting, but I held out judgment until I actually saw them, which it was a little better than I thought it would be, but it just did not capture the characters that the way I would have liked. I want to give Uncharted a 6 out of 10. It was cool. It wasn't bad. I probably won't watch it again, but I definitely felt like for a video game adaptation, it could have been worse.
I'm a person who's very familiar with the games, but has never played them firsthand. So in watching this movie, I definitely found myself wanting to play the games and actually see what's what, because I know that they're great. I enjoyed this movie for what it was. It's not a horrible movie by no means. It's just the problem is the source material and what it's associated with. That's probably going to be the biggest problem. It's funny because if this movie was a standalone and wasn't associated with the Uncharted IP, it probably would be regarded a little bit better. You know, even in realm of like the National Treasures movie, this movie isn't like stellar by no means, but I think it would probably score a little bit higher if it wasn't based off of those beloved characters. For me, I enjoyed the action. I thought it was funny. I genuinely laughed at the characters. I thought they had a good chemistry. The bottom line is that they're just not the characters that they were based off of, and that's where the problem came in for me. You know, as somebody who's familiar with the games but not even immersed in them, I know that this is not them. So, you know, that says a lot for a casual fan to say that. For what it was, I thought it was decent. So I'm going to give it a 6 as well. I definitely think that there is something here that you could enjoy. It's certainly a movie that, you know, I wouldn't pay to see, but if it was free on a streaming service, it's definitely worth, I guess, checking out. You wouldn't feel like you wasted your time. But if you're a fan of the games, you know, definitely be cautioned that this probably will piss you off.
That was our review of Uncharted. I hope y'all enjoyed it. As always, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any suggested reviews you'd like to see us cover here, please drop a comment below.
Absolutely. And if you guys have seen Uncharted, the movie, please let us know what you thought. How do you feel like it stacks up compared to the games? How do you feel about the casting? How do you feel about the action scenes overall? What did you think? Let us know. We appreciate y'all, man.
Thank y'all.
Peace.